Reunited, and guess who is really thoroughly delighted? As ever, let me explain. Morning chums, nice to see you. Thank you so much for your time today, and as ever, welcome one and all brand new subscribers. Well, it happened, absolutely. Later this afternoon, of course, we saw the arrival back into Clarence House of the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. Now, who could have possibly tipped off that particular photographer and that particular newspaper company to make sure that they got the ace picture? Right? You understand how this works. What's interesting though is, well, now there's a bigger problem behind the scenes, and none more so for the Prince and Princess of Wales. And if they thought about it very clearly, the people that Harry now has just associated himself with. Let me explain. Well, there's one person who's absolutely thrilled, delighted and over the moon back in Montecito. That is, of course, Meghan Markle. Now, she likes to call herself Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, because that's the title that she was given. You know, she pointed that out on that Bloomberg interview and was very clear about the fact that she is not giving that up. Now, as I mentioned to you before, it's very difficult now, isn't it, for His Majesty the King, because he's got a busy period coming up. Next week, we look forward to welcoming the President of the United States, President Trump, for an official visit, and he's still got his ongoing cancer treatment. But he found to take time out for just under an hour with his youngest son, Prince Harry. But you see, the bigger picture is this. It's not about whether His Majesty the King wants to meet his son, or indeed Harry insisting that he doesn't know how much longer his father has got. You know, remember, this was all very artfully put together way back in the summer by that new communications team, headed by, of course, Meredith May. Don't fall for the gaff, right? It's interesting because what they're trying to do very cleverly is sort of rehabilitate Harry over here. We've seen the old Harry turn up, happy, smiling, playing with children, making huge donations, allegedly. And the other side of it is, you know, moving forward, look at what you're missing, look at what we could be. Now, it makes it very tricky. And as I spoke to someone very close, as you can imagine, to His Majesty the King, you know, he's not giving in as without a fight. But now he's got a problem. And the problem is this. His eldest son, in the fullness of time, will be the head of the monarchy. He doesn't want to meet his brother. And I can tell you 100% from an excellent source that despite His Majesty the King offering the opportunity for him to be there to try and bridge a gap, Prince William said no. Wasn't interested, got no inclination to spend the time with him. Very sad, but all brought on by himself. But back to Montecito, you see, this puts Meghan in a very, very strong position because once again, she's now talked about, not in the negative of her flop wine, her flop TV show, the crepes, the jam, the disaster that has been, say, the last 18 months, starting with as ever. It's now all about her connections, her power, being associated with one of the most famous families in the world. Suddenly, respect will come back on board. This will help, in her mind at least, the forthcoming Christmas special. Make no mistake about it, chums. Meghan is a very clever manipulator, and she knows that by getting Harry back in front of his father, regardless, it's just now up the ante. Where does it go from here? Well, truly, nobody knows. Naturally, I'm working on that for you now, but it's a difficult thing. I would suggest that His Majesty the King, being a nice, warm, kind, caring individual, wants to check in with his son. Of course, the other side of the coin is what's proven is that, in fact, it would have been nice, given the fact that he knew he was meeting the King, that he could have brought his eldest child over, Archie, but he didn't, because Meghan hasn't quite finished rinsing out the final remains of what's required for her. And it always goes back to Meghan. As I told you before, it's a little bit like the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. At some point, you know, the Duke of Windsor could have been allowed back into the British monarchy. You know, the king at the time was very similar, if you like, to His Majesty the King, King Charles. But the Queen Mother was having none of it because it came with stipulations. People had to treat Wallis as the high-ranking sort of royal, you know, curtsy and all and everything like that, what she expected, what the Duke expected, even though he departed to marry the woman he loved. If people think history doesn't repeat itself, it's happening right now. But over in Montecito, Meghan Markle has literally scored one of her biggest goals. And she, I know for a fact from an excellent source working alongside her, was hoping that this would finally come off. And for her, it's arrived. So whether people want to write her off right now, you simply can't. She thinks she's back in the game. All thanks to Harry securing a meeting and hopefully presenting the many proposals that she wants to have put forward. It's a developing story. I'll know more soon. Neil Sean, Hyde Park, London.